To Still Poddable! You are tuned in to the free version here on CLNS YouTube page. Please subscribe to that if you want to listen in to these free version of Still Poddable. If you want the Still Poddable version with Brian B. Robb from MassLive.com, Jay King from The Athletic, and me, Jam Packard from Still Poddable, you can go to patreon.com/Still Poddable. We are the best daily Boston Celtics podcast, and we are there on Patreon giving you amazing content Monday through Friday. Again, this is the free version that comes out generally on Monday mornings. What we do the live stream on Sunday as well, but then we're doing fantastic episodes for the rest of the week. So if you want to listen to more of our content, go to patreon.com/Still Poddable. Today, we are here to talk Boston Celtics basketball. A big surprise there, but we are coming here to talk about, I guess, the two most recent games, the absolute drubbing of the Utah Jazz at home on Friday night, and then the win last night by the Boston Celtics, where they beat the Pacers 118-101. A pretty close game, a game that let the Pacers get back in the third quarter, and then it was absolute domination by, I would say, Jason Tatum and the rest of the Celtics defense there in the fourth quarter to kind of pull away there. And I forgot about it. It happens. It's seemingly every year, but it's January Jason Tatum time. It seems like the calendar shifts. It's a new year, and Jason Tatum just kind of shows up and gets back to being the all NBA type player. It's not even that he was having a bad first couple of months of the season. It's that he was like less than meeting like very, very high expectations. And so, B-Rob, I guess, what have you seen from Tatum over here over the past, I guess, 3 games in January that it's just like, what's your reaction to the new Jason Tatum?
I guess it's okay.
New year, new Tatum.
It is, Packer. Like he's done this for what, like 3 or 4 years now, and it's easy to forget every year. And then January hits, and you're like, oh yeah, like new gear. And offensively, for how efficient he was against the Jazz on Friday night, to Saturday night against the Pacers, pretty much just toying with them all night. 8 of 13 from 3-point range, 38, 13, and 6 across the board for his box score line. It's just, that teams that have these teams, we know they don't have anyone to defend him, but now it's just like he punishes them more and more, it seems like. And when the jump shot is falling like that, Jay, like I don't know what you can do against him, especially when he's just entering this new phase of his career now where he's just about pretty much doing whatever the team needs to do to win night in and night out and caring less about the numbers, which he's talked about a lot these last couple of nights.
Yeah, the pull-up 3 doesn't always go in. The step-back 3 doesn't always go in. But like you said, when it does, it totally changes things. And to me, the most important play, or the play that stood out the most to me, was Tatum's hot. He's been hitting everything. He's absolutely destroying the Pacers, hitting just tough shot after tough shot. Gets an ISO against Aaron Nesmith in the right corner and says, you know what? This isn't the best matchup for us, and finds Jaylen Brown at the elbow instead so that Jaylen Brown can go at Tyrese Halliburton. And that, to me, showed the evolution, not just of Tatum, but of the Celtics, where they're understanding, like, doesn't really matter if I'm super hot, doesn't matter. We have to do the right thing. And Tatum went and got free throws against Halliburton, or Jaylen did, rather. And that was so smart. That was the play that's the difference between Tatum early in his career and Tatum now. He does typically start slow. Last year was probably the lone exception where he really, really had a great start. I think he was number 1 in Tim Bontemps' straw poll MVP vote after the first third of the season. But it's probably better for the Celtics that he starts a little slow, paces himself a little bit, then comes on during the second half of the season, because that's when you really want him, especially because even without epic Jason Tatum performances night in and night out, the Celtics are atop the NBA. They now have a 3.5 game cushion on Milwaukee, who's in second place in the Eastern Conference. I just think that if Tatum's 3-point shot comes back, especially those off the dribble shots, then that just adds one more layer to this Celtics offense, which I don't think has totally played its best basketball yet.
I'm looking at his month splits from the 2020 season to now. He's actually a fantastic October player, but he's only played 15 games there. But it's really remarkable. Like, his points per game really jump up in January. His 3-point percentage goes from like 35 in November, December, and jumps up to 37, 38 in January. Shockingly, though, he's actually at best in March. March is his best month.
He's a March guy for sure.
He's definitely in March. He's averaging 30 points a game and 40% from three. And so
that's including early in his career when he was only averaging probably like 14 or 15.
Oh, not the looks. I narrowed it down to just the kind of post bubble years because I wanted to, really lock in on this clear statistical pattern we're seeing. I don't know if a sample size of 40 games in March works, but for this narrative, it does.
Yeah, the fact that this team already has the record it has when Tatum hasn't gone to this level yet, it should be very scary for the rest of the NBA right now. And like Jay referenced, they're already up 3.5 games in the East after last night. The Bucks lost to the Rockets. The Sixers didn't get destroyed by the Jazz, but lost to the Jazz. They haven't beaten that game, but that was not great for them. They're not trending in the right direction right now. And so the Celtics they have an opportunity here with one of the softest schedules remaining in the NBA to create a nice cushion for themselves at the top of the Eastern Conference if they keep taking care of business in a tough January. And so far, so good in the first 2 games of this tough 5-7 stretch.
Can we engage in a fun sports talk radio style debate?
Please.
Is Jason Tatum good enough to be the best player on a championship team? Can he be the guy? Is he top 5 player in this league? Because we saw him go into Oklahoma City and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander wiped the floor with him. Jay King, your thoughts?
I hate this conversation. Yes, he's good enough. They almost won it 2 years ago.
But he failed against the Warriors in the finals.
He was bad in that series. He was bad. They're better now. He's better now. He can do more things off the ball. He's smarter. He's a better screener. He's an insane rebounder for his position. He just it's a dumb conversation. That said, I will agree. Typically, NBA champions have like a top 3 player, a real MVP, and Tatum hasn't quite ever been at that level. So like historically, you could probably say that the best player on a championship team is typically like a Jokic or a Steph Curry or a LeBron, like guys who are real MVPs. And Tatum's a fringe MVP candidate. He's like the 4th or 5th on your ballot. He's awesome. And the Celtics are loaded. He's on this team, especially. I think he's good enough to be the best.
I mean, with the personnel around him, it's going to just be able to highlight it more and more. I think that comes down to it's like the perfect storm of not only his progression of his own career, but guys that really play to his strengths and, the recognition that he's had like on plays like you point out, Jay, where it's like, okay, me taking Nesmith to the hoop, that's not great right now. We have better matchups elsewhere because against a Pacers team that is a bottom 5 defense last night, like that's him and Jaylen Brown, who we haven't even talked about yet, 13 to 20 from the field. Like those guys just ate the Pacers wings up all night long.
Jaylen killed Halliburton, like just toasted
scary.
Halliburton time after time. I thought that Bruce Brown was a huge loss for the Pacers, especially in that matchup against the Celtics. When Halliburton has to guard one of those guys, like, good night.
And the scary part is, I think about last night too, is the Celtics they won that game with defense more than offense. I mean, the Pacers scored 101 points. That's their lowest scoring night of the year. They had a miserable night shooting the ball from 3, but the Celtics, after they got torched in that game in the in-season tournament jam, like they just came out and particularly in that 4th quarter when push came to shove, they just were able to lock down in the spots and Halliburton didn't seem to get into a rhythm all night long.
Yeah, and they were doing so without Kristaps Porzingis, who had to survive an ugly scratching from
we'll get to that.
Former friend Aaron Nesmith. But yeah, it's like the defensive end. It just felt like the ball stopping was much better, just stopping penetration, and like Haliburton couldn't really get it going the entire night. And then I just thought they did a better job of hands up, like simple things. Al Horford just being amazing. Like, where's that guy? Still have the fountain of youth, but his blocks, his steals, allowing Jalen to get out in transition, I thought was super effective there. Before we talk more about the rest of the Pacers game and anything we want to talk about the Jazz game, we should hear from the fine folks over at FanDuel.
Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action, NFL. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including you got spreads, you get your player props, you got over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
And we're back. Thanks to you guys for joining us here on the CLNS YouTube. If you want more Still Poddable, go to patreon.com/Still Poddable. You'll get us every single day, Monday through Friday, as we do a game recap, pretty much every single game. And we got some fun ones coming up this week. Another one against the Pacers. The Timberwolves come to town for a revenge game, and then another one against the Bucks. So you're going to want to go to patreon.com/Still Poddable to get all the recaps from those games. Jay, what else did you take away from that game against the Indiana Pacers? B-Rob touched on a little bit of the defense, but holding Haliburton to 17 points, only 7 assists. This guy was basically averaging 20 assists per game over like the last week. He's been an offensive machine on his own. What'd you see from the Celtics there? I guess we'll focus on the defensive end.
Well, part of it, I just thought Al Horford was so good. Kristaps Porzingis goes out early. They need Al to come in and play a whole bunch of minutes. 10 points, 8 assists, 7 rebounds, 3 blocks, a steal, leads the break, finds Jaylen Brown with an alley-oop. There's no way he's 37 years old. There is no way. It's just not possible.
It's the longest prime ever.
It's wild that he's still at this level defensively. Like, sure, you can extend your career by becoming a knockdown three-point shooter, which Al Horford has. He saw that evolution coming a long time ago, began working on a three-point shot a long time ago, has a much quicker release now, can get shots off more easily. That has been huge in allowing him to stay on the court. The only reason why he's still a viable player is because he has not taken a step back defensively. Somehow, he's still just an awesome, awesome defender. He was swatting shots off the board. He had that awesome steal that led to the fast break alley-oop. He can guard. He's still the rare big man who can switch and guard in space. And sometimes he gives up buckets, but it's almost always a guy shooting over the top of him. He makes him shoot over the top of him. The fact that he's still at that high level defensively is so important for the Celtics. And the fact that he's been pretty healthy, capable of playing whatever minutes they need. And it's been a smaller minutes load this year, which I think is really important. But he's just at such a high level, and that him staying there is key for the Celtics because like Cornet's been good, Keta's been good, but you need it to be Porzingis and Al once the playoffs come. And Al is just still at such a high level. It's crazy.
Yeah, the difference on that front from last, like right now, is they needed Horford on the floor to win a lot last year. And that led to the 31, 32 minutes per game, which was fine in the regular season. He was sitting the back-to-backs, but that's still a heavy minutes load regardless, even if you're sitting out those back-to-backs, because when you're at that age, like that, it's going to wear on you. And I think we saw the byproduct of that as those long series rode on against the Sixers and the Heat eventually at the end of last year. But now, to your point, Jay, like they can not only is he up, the minutes are down, but the Celtics have shown that, like, hey, Cornet can step in when Al's night off, and they're still winning all these games mostly handily. So they can also be able to build that cushion in during this mid-range of the season now and really rest him if they need to at the end of the year. Like really gear up where he's keeping his stamina up, he's keeping himself in top form, but he's not putting the miles on the tires. And so I think that's a season long thing, a team long thing in terms of preserving Al Horford and making the guy that we saw last night be like a regular appearance, not every game in the playoffs, but enough. And they're 3/8 of the way through the season right now, and they've taken some really important steps on that front.
He's there, like mentioned, I was looking at the stats for his minutes down. He's at 26.5 per game, which is much, like, it doesn't seem that much lower than 30, but that's over the course of a whole season. And so I think they're doing a good job. I thought it was interesting. I don't know if they've done this before, but it's like rest them on the first night of a back-to-back, knowing that they have a better opponent on the second night. I just thought it was interesting strategic wise. My question for you guys is, what do you think the best Celtics defensive lineup is right now? Because I think Kristaps Porzingis has been very, very good as a rim protector, but I think we saw some times in the OKC game where he's super dedicated to helping out on the paint. He maybe can't get out, can cast those threes. Is the lineup with Al a better defensive lineup, or is it the lineup with Kristaps? Or is a combination? I don't know. I'm assuming we haven't seen a lot of both Kristaps and Al lineups, but I just don't remember them being thriving on either end of the court. So I'm curious what you guys think. Who's the best 5-man rotation in terms of best Celtics defense right now?
Probably depends on the opponent.
Oh, don't give me nuance.
if there is anywhere to hide Porzingis and to allow him to guard a non-shooter, then they're just going to stifle you. They are going to punish you for having a non-shooter on the court. Porzingis is going to stay near the rim, wipe away everything. It's going to be just a real issue for him. If you need someone to be more capable of being aggressive on the perimeter, then sometimes it's probably Al, because Kristaps has been okay in switching. They don't do it a lot with him, but he's been okay when they've asked him to do it. But Al has kind of been more comfortable in space a lot of the time. And so, yeah, but I mean, they're both really good defenders. And then you have Drew Holiday, Derek White, probably the NBA's best defensive backcourt. You have Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, who can guard just about anybody, especially as they've gotten stronger. Like Tatum can legitimately guard big men now in a way that he couldn't a long time ago. So the Celtics defense is really, really good. What they did to the Pacers, like, that's tough to do. That Pacers team gets out in transition, they can kill you, and the Celtics just made them look normal, which almost never happened. They scored a ton of points. I just thought the way the Celtics were able to disrupt that rhythm, never let them get in a rhythm from the first quarter on. It was just like constant. Just a super impressive defensive performance.
Yeah, I mean, it's just wild to me that 101 points is their lowest on the season for them. That just speaks to what kind of team they've been. But yeah, going back to the defense question, Jim, I would also say I wouldn't even place it on an opponent. It's like, I feel like there are certain nights where Al just doesn't have it. Like maybe against OKC was one of these examples where he's not moving well on one particular night, and that happens when you're 37. But barring one of those nights, I think Al is the clear answer right now still. And you're talking about versatility of being able to guard an Embiid or Giannis, or being able to hold his own on the perimeter somewhat. He still does that better than Porzingis in totality. Like, obviously he can't handle the Steph Currys and the SGAs of the world, but if you're just looking across the board, who do you trust more in that spot still? It's still Al. But the interesting question for Joe as the season goes on here is who, the upside of Kristaps offensively is so, great, where it's are you willing, how much? I imagine he's still going to have the edge by default most nights in those spots, because that just creates the offense, creates more problems for opposing defenses.
I'm really curious to see how the Celtics handle, if they play in a playoff series, how they handle Joel Embiid, how they handle Giannis.
Yep.
Because there's no obvious answer in their starting lineup. And maybe with Giannis especially, the answer is just Drew Holiday. just sick through on him.
Maybe that's the answer for Embiid too. Who knows?
Everywhere else. Yeah, they showed it against Embiid during the regular season. It actually worked well during a regular season game earlier, but like, over a long series, can you actually get away with that? So figuring out how to deal with those types of guys, those big physical forces in the playoffs with that starting lineup is going to be, I don't know if a problem is the right word, but a challenge for Joe Mazzulla, because that starting lineup has been amazing. That starting lineup offensively just has solutions for everything. And Al Horford, as good as he's been this year, like there's just a big downgrade as far as post scoring, inside scoring, drawing free throws, all that stuff from Porzingis. So the more you have to play Al and get away from that starting lineup, I think is probably not a real issue, because Al can still play at a super high level if you need him guarding Giannis, guarding Embiid. That's cool. It's worked in the past. But I just think if you don't have to play him because of his defense and you can find out other ways to handle those matchups, that's just going to be a benefit. And I don't know, honestly, maybe it is just Drew, but that's looking ahead. That's one of the potential issues for the Celtics.
I think also in those matchups, you want Kristaps on the floor because he can pull out of the paint Joel Embiid or Brook Lopez. But I think Kristaps has done a pretty good job of switching and kind of stepping out and doing traps and stuff. But if he's in a drop and you're just going to let kind of pull up threes happen, Tyrese Maxey and Damian Lillard are like the kind of guys, I guess, offenses you'd want to have taking those shots. And so ideally you can hide someone, Kristaps on, someone else, but it's the playoffs. You're going to slow down offenses. They're going to hunt specific people to get into matchups. And so it's going to be interesting to see, because I don't think anyone's like Kristaps has really been directly
Has anyone
targeted.
really successfully hunted him this year?
I think you can say
Bam Adebayo probably gave him the most problems so far.
I think down low hunting him, I would say Bam. But I think just hunting his positioning, I think the Thunder did a pretty good job of recognizing he was going to be helping and trying to dish the guy on the perimeter. And so,
but the Celtics also were giving up those shots on purpose. They decided, we're going to leave Giddey alone. We're going to try to take away Shea's drives. We think that the paint points are going to hurt us the most. If they make the threes, basically tip your cap.
I know, but Kristaps' value is being a rim protector. And so if he's going to be out there, you're going to want to the Celtics defense is going to want to put Kristaps near the rim. And so I can't think of another team that is really focused on just trying to attack Kristaps or trying to get him out in space. Because again, we said he's done a pretty good job of it, but I don't think anyone's still done a high dose of pick and roll at Kristaps with the intention of just shooting over him. But I do think that's a potential way to beat the Celtics if you have just a good pull-up shooter there.
Yeah, although he's mobile too. I haven't seen too many teams really give the Celtics issues that way.
I feel like the Heat did a good job.
And the Celtics also have two of the best guards at avoiding screens, staying with their defenders in the entire league. Derek White and Drew Holiday are both so good at that. Drew Holiday in Milwaukee, that's how they played. He was going to stick to you. He was going to give you problems. It was going to be him versus the screener with Brook Lopez way back. And Derek White, same thing. It's he's never out of a play. He's always attached to his man, around screens, whatever. So that helps too.
I feel like the Heat, very, very early on in the season, did a good job of attacking Kristaps in the drop with Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero and things like that. But that was the second game of the season, so I don't know how much to take away from that. Just looking at the advanced numbers in just terms of defensive rating, the Celtics are second in the league in defense, second in the league in offense. Folks, I think that's happened 3 times in the past. The 2017 Warriors, the 2015 Warriors, and the 96 Bulls. So B-Rob, do you think I think the offense is going to be there. I don't know if they're going to overtake the Pacers, but I guess, do you think the defense is sustainable at this point?
I think it could be. I think it's going to be, a rock fight. They're going to have a lot of company up there in the top 5 defensively. But yeah, I think it all comes down to like health essentially, and also how much they want to lock in. Like if they build like a 6 or 7 game lead and like for the number 1 spot in the East, then maybe they take their foot off the gas a little bit just organically. But from a personnel standpoint, they absolutely have the ingredients there. I think that was the one area I've been surprised has come along so quickly, or has even been ahead of the offense for much of the year, is like how well they've come together defensively. And that's part of that is, obviously acquiring Drew Holiday before the season started. But I think Porzingis, as we've kind of lined out, has been better than expected in terms of what he's able to do. And that's made life a lot easier as far as rim protection for the guys on the perimeter. So it's there for them. And the record kind of matches it right now. And like it's like we keep harping on, like the schedule's been really tough. So it's like they're not doing it against layup opponents either. So when they face more of the Wizards and the Pistons of the world, that number, I guess, could still just go up.
Yeah. Was anybody surprised that Aaron Nesmith hurt somebody?
No, we have to get to that. We've wasted way too long before to get away from the Aaron Nesmith friendly fire.
Before we get to Nesmith, let's hear from me talking about Factor, I think. This holiday season, you might be looking for healthy, convenient meals to keep you energized on your jam-packed days. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service, can help you fuel up fast for breakfast, lunch, and dinner with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track with your healthy lifestyle while tackling all your holiday to-dos. Listen, holidays are a busy season. I know I have exams coming up. It just takes all the thinking out of going to the grocery stores. There's no stress over meal prepping. With Factor, you can just choose from 35 plus weekly flavor-packed meals, fresh, never frozen meals that support your healthy lifestyle and meet your meal preferences, and they're delivered right to your door and ready to eat within 2 minutes. Go to factormeals.com/winning50 and use code winning50 to get 50% off. That's winning50 at factormeals.com/winning50 to get 50% off your order today. Welcome back to Still Poddable here on the CLNS YouTube. If you want more Still Poddable, go to patreon.com/stillpoddable. You'll get us every day, Monday through Friday, the best Celtics podcast. The best daily Celtics podcast, not like those other shenanigans and fools out there on the internet, charlatans, I would say. Let's empty the mailbag. Let's empty the notes. Like, what else do you guys have from observations? I guess either in Utah or Indiana, but we'll start with, dare I say, reckless Aaron Nesmith. The play where he actually injured Kristaps, kind of felt like a fluke, but. I think Scal and Drew Carter were talking about on the broadcast, like he has contained his wild play. It's still kind of like the name Crash still applies. It's still kind of out of control, but it's like an order of magnitude less or more in control than it was with the Celtics. And so, B-Rob, what's your impression of Green Bean, as he was nicknamed here in Boston?
Yeah, Nesmith, when you're playing 30 minutes a night now, you can't really go as balls to the wall, but he still gets pretty close to it. He still goes I think like the top 1 or 2 percentile.
He goes ball to the wall,
to the wall. Just singular there. So I mean, it's just, if you were gonna tell me before that game, some Porzingis got poked in the eye, would have guessed 9 times out of 10 that Nesmith was the culprit. And I don't get Porzingis. Wait, he came back for 2 minutes there, tried to play through it, and I don't wonder if it was like up the lights or whatever.
Like, nah,
no, this is good. Come out, start at halftime. Like, nope, still not feeling it.
You could tell. You could see his eye. Like, it was clearly not right when he came back in. They showed his eye, and it was just like barely open. it was right of him, I think, to step off the court. Hopefully for the Celtics, he won't miss too much time. The Nesmith experience, I thought Joe Mazzulla put it well. I think Abby asked him, basically, do you think Nesmith takes his challenge or matchup personally? Like, yeah, I do. He takes every matchup personally. Like, he's just a maniac, utter maniac on the basketball court. The dunk on Derek White was fantastic. The whole Nesmith experience it's a ride, and he's become a valuable player for Indiana. He's shooting a really high percentage from threes. At least for a little while, he's leading the league. I don't think he is anymore, though I could be wrong there. He's super athletic. He's super energetic, and one of the few guys on that team that gives them a defensive physicality that they really need more of, honestly. So salute to Nesmith. He's carved himself out a role in the league, and he's done it in a way that I don't think a lot of people anticipated. He came into the league, people thought he was just going to be a shooter. I think he called himself an absolute sniper in his post-draft press conference. And instead, he's just become an energy guy. And now he's starting to knock down shots. But he really got himself on the court due to his defense and just playing harder than just about anybody.
One thing we kind of touched on, we haven't really mentioned, Jaylen Brown also had 31 points last night, just a casual 30-30 from the Jays. He continues to play the best basketball of his career. I've been listening to some other maybe Celtics media podcasts. I won't say which ones, but do you guys think Jaylen Brown is going to make the All-Star team this year? Because you really think he's just a lock?
Yeah.
I think it's
once you make the All-Star team, it's easier to make the All-Star team again. And
true. So
he has the All-Star pedigree. He's on the best team in the league. They are 3.5 games clear of anybody else. Yeah, I do think he's going to make the All-Star team. He's going to make it, and then beyond him, it'll be, I don't know if Derek White will make it. Kristaps Porzingis probably has a case. I don't think he'll make it, but I don't know if he's been the Celtics' second best player so far, but for All-Star purposes, he'll be there.
The first return. Go ahead.
From a number standpoint, Jalen's been unbelievable the past month, but Porzingis is pretty close to Jalen if you're just looking at the metrics. I agree. He's obviously doing. I agree, Jay. With the pedigree he has, I would be surprised if he doesn't get it if this team keeps on this pace for another couple weeks.
And he was high in the first fan vote too.
Yeah, so that's a good point. Maybe he'll get in as a starter potentially based on what the players vote, or at least have a chance at that. But yeah, that is it's nuts. It's you can. We'll break down all the candidates in depth here in upcoming weeks on the show, and we'll actually break down Porzingis' chances, White's chances, etc. But 2 seems definite for the Celtics, and 3, 4 question mark is not as preposterous if they keep this pace up.
It's gonna be tough because only 12 guys make it, and so right now Kristaps was 8th in the front court voting. Derek White was 8th in the guards voting. So if you just go based on that, they'd probably not make it. But Mikal Bridges is ahead of Kristaps right now. I don't think he's an all-star. LaMelo Ball is ahead of Derek White.
Mikal Bridges so high?
I don't know. That really doesn't make any sense.
The Nets have no fans.
Right. Where are they coming from?
Where are these votes coming from? Who started the Mikal Bridges campaign?
Okay, who do you think's 9th right after Porzingis?
Paolo.
No, more votes than Paolo from your Washington Wizards, Kyle Kuzma. So who knows what's going on with this? This is why they took away power from the fans in terms of all-star voting. They didn't trust them to make the legitimate decisions after so many years of Dwayne Wade and I guess Derrick Rose making it for no good reason. B-Rob, any other observations from the past 2 games other than
100%. We need to break down. This is what I've been most excited for today to talk about with you guys. We need to break down the Hauser-Cornet switcheroo situation at the free throw line.
That was a great moment. They really tried to pull a fast one.
And so here's my question for you guys though on this. We saw, so if anyone missed in the fourth quarter, loose ball foul, Cornet got fouled, going the other way. Was a long break. They have to walk down the other side of the floor. Hauser tries to sneak in, take the free throws in Cornet's place, almost does it, and then the refs actually eventually catch him. So Cornet goes to the line, and so Cornet makes the first, and NBC Sports Boston cameras pick him up yelling at the bench essentially. after one make, and then makes the second one and hits with the ice in his vein celebration. So my question is that celebration like an inside joke on the fact that they weren't making free throws that night, or was the fact that they tried, the pressure was on Cornet because they tried the switcheroo, it didn't work, so like all eyes are on him, like he had to make those free throws and he rightfully celebrated there. Either way, we need to get to the bottom of this, but I'm curious to your guys' take on this.
Do you think it was an intentional gambit? Like there's like Joe was like,
they knew who was fouled. There's no way you don't know who's fouled.
But Joe was like, run this like Hauser sneakily.
We're in Indiana, run the switcheroo.
Do you think it was something that came from the top, or do you think Hauser was just like, now's my opportunity to get a few more free throws?
I would guess that it was just on Hauser. It's tough to communicate that from the sideline.
Well, they might have a play. They might. Joe's very prepared.
Yeah, maybe he told Hauser, anytime there's a situation where you might be able to sneak to the line, try it, because there's no downside to it. All they do is just have Cornet take them. Like there's no downside to getting caught in that. I enjoyed it. I would guess it was because Hauser tried to go to the line and not the fact that it was one of the worst free throw shooting performances I have ever seen. They were 4 for 12 at one point. It was outrageous. I've never seen a team miss free throws like they did. They did not get a free throw in the first half. Then they got a bunch of them in the third quarter, but we're just missing all of them. It was a weird free throw game for the Celtics.
Agreed. That was wild. I'm with you. I think it was the fact that he got to go there after they tried to pull this move. And I don't know, long live Luke Cornet. That's the type of entertaining shit that we need in an 82 game schedule. You could just tell the reaction from the bench after he did that, just how much of a kick it they want. That's the perfect energy guy you want coming off the bench that keeps things light.
He definitely has the best celebrations on the team, whether it's the moose or the glasses. He's definitely bringing lots of celebration game. We got anything else? While
we're on Hauser and Cornet, I thought they had a great performance together after the Jazz game in the locker room.
Do tell.
That in that locker room, Cornet was just singing Christmas tunes, just
on January 5th.
belting them out. Oh yeah, it was late for the Christmas tunes, but he was belting them out. And then Hauser was just proclaiming to people that he's a lob threat. he caught an alley-oop in that game, and he was just telling everyone that he's a lob threat now. So
he had 3 dunks.
That duo.
He had 3 dunks heading into this year. I think he has 7 dunks this year, 2 of them on lobs. So that's 100% increase on the amount of dunks. He might be a lob threat.
I saw someone on Twitter write that Celtics people were crazy for thinking it's unusual when Sam Hauser dunks because he's a 6'8" NBA player. Well, it was unusual. This guy had 3 dunks his entire career heading into the season. I think 2 of them came on the same night. So he had dunked in 2 different games in his career before this season. So yes, we are going to remark when Sam Hauser dunks, especially when he catches an alley-oop, which I think he's now done twice in his career, maybe 3 times in his career. So it's rare, it's unusual, it's fun. Oh yeah, it's hard to dunk in an NBA game though. You have to be so athletic. Watching what guys do even guys you don't think are athletic, what they can do in pregame layup lines is just insane. Like Luke Cornet can throw down between his legs dunks. And it's like, oh, wow, these guys are far more athletic than they're even allowed, because you have to be just on another level to dunk against that level of athlete. And Hauser, just on another level athletically these days.
Been a hell of a year for Hauser. Shooting the ball from anywhere.
His defense has been really good.
His defense has been, far better than I think anyone would have expected given the growth in his role. And yeah, now you got Brad Stevens talking about, hey, yeah, we're looking for a big wing, but the answer might be internal. And obviously Hauser's a big part of that equation in terms of he's going to get those first crack at those minutes in the playoffs. And I don't know, I guess the other random development from last night, like Brissett seemed like he was everywhere, and he's kind of like, he's not making shots still.
He
but
always
he's
is everywhere. He and the shots still don't fall, but do they have an option, or is there an option out there that is better than just the high energy Brissett? Stevens had that press conference where he said they want to bring in a big wing. Brissett is a big wing, but he's just not knocking down threes. Feels like the only time he ever knocked down threes was playing against the Celtics for the Pacers. But is there an option out there that is that much better than, I guess, what O'Shea Brissett is giving them right now? And if so, do you see them going out and actually spending capital to get it?
And part of that equation is how much more of a problem is it in the playoffs that he can't knock down shots?
Right.
Because that's what you have to think about. It's not just, can we throw O'Shea Brissett into a regular season game and be fine? Because the answer to that is very clearly yes. He's going to defend. He's going to crash the glass. He's going to try really hard to make an impact. But is he an option in the playoffs realistically? And I don't know the answer to that. And I don't know if the Celtics know the answer to that. And that's why Brad said, we're going to look for a big wing, because you want the guy who can hold up defensively, but also knock down shots and also punish you if you're going to focus too much on guarding Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. So that's the part of the equation that I don't really know the answer to. And look, it's going to take a pretty good player to crack this Celtics playoff rotation, or have a chance of cracking the Celtics playoff rotation. We'll see if they can find anyone better than Brissett.
I think that they need go ahead, B-Rob.
No, I was going to say now, it seems like they're at least trying to figure out, he's played more than 15 minutes in 4 of the last 5 games, and the standpoint what can he give us when he has consistent minutes, which he hasn't had for a while. And on the standpoint of just having that information moving into the trade deadline, to your point, Jay, being how much can we give him a little bit of rope here? What can he show us? And then we can make kind of an educated decision of being do we feel comfortable in any spot from the playoffs, or is it a situation where we just need to find that upgrade? And he's probably going to stay on the team, but he's just going to be further down the bench.
The thing they're thinking about, if it's just playoff rotations in the playoffs, that's redundant. Playoff rotations are generally pretty short. Right now they have a solid 9-man rotation where they have the top 6, and then they have the Russian doll of white players with Pritchard, Hauser, and Cornet. Is it going to get much deeper than that? Rotations really shorten down, and I would be surprised if they're going to have a 10th guy. So I think yes, the question is whether or not they can bring in someone who's better than Brissett, but it's are they even going to be able someone who's better than Hauser, or are they going to bring in someone who's going to crack that top 9?
Probably not better than Hauser.
Yeah, probably not.
Hauser's pretty good.
That's why I don't feel like they're going to do. I feel like they'll probably take a flyer on some guy and see if he works out. But I don't anticipate the playoff rotation. I don't even know if Luke Cornet's going to play in the playoffs. Maybe some spot minutes here or there, but you'd have to imagine that the top 6 guys, especially if you've rested Al Horford the entire time, are going to play between 30 and 35 minutes, and there's just not going to be that many more minutes for guys beyond Pritchard, beyond Hauser. And so I don't know if this team if we're just talking about the playoffs, do you need more than those 9 guys that they currently have to really make a deep run? Because you're just presuming that the starters are going to play that much more, and there's just not going to be that much more bench opportunity. I
think it's more about when you have to presume into 20 plus games in the playoffs, Al and or Porzingis is going to miss time. And then in those games, it's where do you go? If it's a bad matchup for Cornet, then suddenly where do you go? If Al's out or Porzingis is out, Cornet, you don't feel comfortable with. Are you better off going super small if a bigger wing? Is O'Shea Brissett capable of giving you 5 or 10 minutes in that spot in each half? Or do you have to go find someone who can do that? Because that is the trade deadline all about right now is it's about fortifying what you have. And I think the biggest risk to this team right now, it seems on paper, just is simply health in getting to the finish line, as is, because they are very top heavy, and that is stuff that's going to get tested with the injury history of these guys and just the age of these guys in general.
Jay, your thoughts?
Yeah.
Nice. All right, let's round out our final topic. That's, I think, a passion project for Jay King. Lil B, the based god, I guess, blessed the Celtics, and people were quite thrilled with this news. Some people less than thrilled. Jay, the floor is yours.
The way I saw it was that my buddies shared it in a group chat, and they were all so excited that Lil B had blessed the Celtics. Let me take you back to the last time, or at least the first time Lil B blessed the Celtics. I don't know if he's blessed the Celtics because, quite frankly, he's not relevant. I don't know what he does on a daily basis. He has not been relevant in years, has not been relevant in ages. I don't know why people care about this guy, quite frankly. The first time or last time I remember Lil B blessing the Celtics, it came right before the 2017-2018 season. Gordon Hayward snapped his ankle 5 minutes into the opening season. Kyrie Irving had season-ending ankle surgery. I believe even Daniel Tice that year had season-ending surgery. There was a third season-ending surgery. They lost to Game 7 at home in the Eastern Conference Finals to the Cleveland Cavaliers, who had LeBron and basically nobody else. They had their hearts ripped out. Terry Rozier went 0 for 10 in that Game 7. They come back the next year. It's the most dysfunctional season maybe in Celtics history. They win 48 games with maybe the most talented team in the league. Al Horford leaves. Kyrie leaves. Gordon Hayward ends up leaving. It was an absolute mess. They were in full-blown shambles. The Lil B is the biggest fraud in the entire world. The fact that people give him credit, the fact that the Celtics quote tweeted this fool, you are just perpetuating the biggest fraud in the entire internet. And I'm sick of it. I'm sick of sheep out here pretending like Lil B carries any influence whatsoever. It's a joke. Nobody should be paying attention to this guy. Nobody should give this guy any love. Nobody should care about him whatsoever.
No one should give him any love. His loved ones should not love him.
Nobody should care about this guy. Not a soul should care about this guy. It appalls me that there's a part of the world that considers his blessing important. I'm sick of him. I'm sick of the people who like him. I'm sick of everything about Lil B, the based fraud.
Are you saying I should withdraw my request for him to bless this podcast? Was that a mistake?
This podcast is already blessed. No matter what the fuck Lil B says, this podcast is blessed.
I don't want season-ending surgery, B-Rob, so I don't want that blessing.
Packard's voice goes out. He has that vocal.
It was funny. I put that on Twitter. I put that on Twitter, and people were all mad at me for taking it seriously. I'm like, this is not serious. This is just a bit. Having fun, guys. But also seriously.
But also based fraud, come nowhere near this podcast. We don't want your blessing. Because he also base God puts on curses, and so we're cursing him. We're going to take it to him and said the best defense is an offense.
I don't want to curse him.
Packard's playing a fire there.
We got
everybody has my blessing.
Everyone
except the idiots who tout Lil B. Except those morons.
We'll put a curse on Lil B's followers then. I just want to put a curse on someone. It seems fun.
I don't want to curse people.
Yeah, that's where you and I differ. But you know what?
I will curse at people.
That you will. That you will. That's the Still Poddable difference, folks. No curses, but only curse words. Anything else, boys, before we wrap up this episode of Still Poddable?
I got nothing else.
Nothing.
More Pacers coming up.
Yeah, we got more. It's a very interesting week of Celtics basketball. I think we'll get the Pacers game, but really it's the two middle matchups against the revenge game against the Minnesota Timberwolves, and then back-to-back against the Bucks. Let's end on a little prediction. Which game do you think Al Horford sits out? And how do you think the Celtics do in those two games? Do they keep the winning streak alive at home and move to 18-0 at home? B-Rob, your thoughts?
Al sits at home against Minnesota because that's the less important game, and they win anyway.
They've been a good vengeance team so far. If you beat them, they're probably going to beat you the next time they see you. If they lose once, they're probably not going to lose the next time out. They've only lost consecutive games one time all season, which is very impressive. They've shown an ability to bounce back. And they're 5-1 on back-to-backs. Like this has been very much the type of team that Joe Mazzulla wanted to build, that just treats every game the same way. That's tough, that gets through stuff, that doesn't let stuff linger. And so, yeah, I think they're going to beat the Timberwolves. That was probably the worst their offense has looked all season. The end of that Timberwolves game, Timberwolves just totally shut them down, totally forced them into ISO stagnant nonsense. And I think they'll handle that intensity and that physicality much better this time and figure out a way to take advantage of Rudy Gobert with Kristaps Porzingis.
I have to agree. I think the home streak there's some good magic there. I think they're gonna go at least 20-0 at home. I think I agree with you. I don't know. Do you think that's the biggest factor in terms of how Horford sits, is like the importance of the game, or do you think it's more matchup based? Because my going in thinking, where do you think Horford is more needed, against the double bigs of the Timberwolves, or to be like kind of the Giannis, slowing down Giannis guy against the Bucks? Because I could see them doing. I don't know what rhyme or reason they're going to use to kind of.
Those are two matchups where he's pretty important.
Yeah, he's pretty important for both. I think equal importance. It's like, but the game, like for tiebreaker purposes, the game against the Bucks is the one you want more. But you're right, Prater. Like you, that's not a good game to send him against the Wolves when you got Towns and Gobert out there. Like that's putting a lot of pressure on Cornet and the rest of the bench. But the good news for that game for the Celtics is that the Wolves are playing in Orlando on Tuesday night, so they're going to be coming into town, coming off a long flight. That's a rough back-to-back for them.
That is a tough back-to-back.
So I think I'm gonna pick the Celtics to win and beat the Wolves, and then I'm gonna pick them to win and beat the Bucks because I'm a homer and it's more fun than
They have been great on back-to-backs.
Great on back-to-backs. Great against the Bucks.
And Kristaps Porzingis' availability is a big wild card in all
Yeah,
this.
it's a pretty. Yeah, we'll see.
I mean,
were you guys surprised he played? Were you guys
who
surprised
knows?
he played last night, Jay? Did you think he was going to play that back-to-back before he got hurt?
Yeah, so he was playing back-to-backs before the calf stuff popped up. So I figured it was only a matter of time before he started playing them again. So that didn't surprise me. He played back-to-backs last year in Washington. Like he's not 37 years old like Al Horford, still in his 20s. So no, that didn't surprise me.
Yeah, it's like a good sign. The calf and the ankle is good now. It's like pretty much like they were.
But now the eye's screwed.
But now exactly now you gotta watch out the eye.
Yeah,
Celtics and eye problems.
Hopefully, it was just a scratch on the eyelid and not the actual cornea, because I think if you scratch your cornea, you have to be out for a little bit of time to let that repair. But we might see Kristaps in rec specs, which I think it would be a powerful look. Maybe unlock the most powerful version of Kristaps Porzingis. But
I love that Drew Carter and Scal recommended just stealing Jalen Smith's goggles. I enjoyed that.
I did as well. We'll see what happens. 3 more games this week with the Boston Celtics. If you want to hear us, the Still Poddable guys, I guess you would describe us as, you can go to patreon.com/stillpoddable. We'll have a podcast after every single game. We'll have some podcasts in between. That's patreon.com/stillpoddable. The best Celtics podcast. We really appreciate everyone who has tuned in, and we appreciate even more everyone who has subscribed to us on the Patreon. Really trying to create a fun community over there. The chat on the Patreon app is just firing away during every single game. We got some great people in there. Got a voicemail line, leaving some interesting voicemails. We get to that during the week. So if you want to come and join us at Still Poddable fam, again, patreon.com/stillpoddable. For B-Rob of MassLive.com, Jay King of The Athletic, and J.M. Packard of Still Poddable, We'll really appreciate you guys tuning into this episode, and we'll be back on the CLNS YouTube feed next week. But in the meantime, join us on the Patreon. Enjoy the snow, Boston folks.